Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good evening, everyone. Today, I'd like to present my research proposal entitled The Influence of Regional Income, General Allocation Fund, Special Allocation Fund, and Populations on Regional Expenditure in West Sumatra Province with economic growth as a moderating variable. In recent years, regional governments in Indonesia have been increasingly expected to manage public finances more independently and efficiently. As part of these fiscal decentralizations, provinces like West Sumatra are challenged to optimize their local revenues while still relying heavily on central government transfers. Understanding the key fiscal components that drive regional expenditure has, therefore, become a crucial concern. The study explores not only the roles of regional income, general allocation fund, special allocation fund, and population size, but also introduces an important moderating element, which is economic growth. West Sumatra is known for its rich natural and cultural resources, especially in tourism and agriculture. However, despite this great potential, the region continues to face significant fiscal management challenges. There are four main funding sources for regional expenditure in West Sumatra. First one, regional income from local taxes and retributions. The second one, general allocations fund. The third one, special allocations fund, which are central government transfers. And the fourth one, population size, which directly impacts the need for public services. But these relationships are not static. They are moderated by economic growth, meaning when the economy grows well, regions can generate more local income and spend more effectively. When the economy slows down, it's going to depend on central transfers increases. The main objective of this research is to analyze how regional income, general and special allocation fund, and populations influence regional expenditure, and to examine how economic growth modifies those relationships over the past 10 years. To understand the need for this study, we must look at the core problem faced by the region. First, there's a strong dependence on general and special allocations fund. But when it comes to regional income, while increasing, still contributes a relatively small portion to total revenue. Second, population's growth continues to put pressure on infrastructure, health, and education spending. Third, West Sumatra's economic growth has been inconsistent, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, making it harder for local governance to plan long term. This problem leads to set of research questions. Do regional income, general and special allocations fund, and population significantly affect regional expenditure? And more importantly, does economic growth moderate these effects? To frame this research, I refer to several theories. The first one, Thibault's theory on fiscal independence, suggesting that the stronger regional income leads to more autonomous decision making. The second one, Ott's fiscal decentralization theory, which explains the role of general and special allocation fund in equalizing development. And third one, Solo's economic growth theory, which argues that regions with stronger growth can generate more revenue and reduce dependency on central transfers. These frameworks help build the conceptual model of the study, where regional income, general and special allocations fund, and populations are independent variables. Regional expenditure is the dependent variables, and economic growth plays the role of moderating variables. Now, let me explain the contributions and limitations of this study. The study contributes both theoretically and practically. Theoretically, it depends our understanding of how fiscal variables behave in the centralized context. Practically, it helps local government improve budget planning by showing which sources of income can be optimized. It also offers guidance for the central government to design more targeted transfer policies like general and special allocation fund. As for the limitations, the study is focused merely on West Sumatra and the period from 2014 to 2023. It does not include external factors such as political dynamics or global crises, which might also affect regional spending. To conclude, this research hopes to bridge the gap between the fiscal policy and economic reality in the local governments, especially in regions like West Sumatra that have great potential but still rely heavily on central transfers. Hopefully, it can help both policymakers and scholars understand that the key drivers of regional expenditure in West Sumatra and how economic growth can be leveraged to improve fiscal management and sustainable development. Let me now explain the theoretical foundations of my research, starting with the grand theory of fiscal federalism. This theory, developed by Musgrave and Oates, describes how fiscal responsibilities such as revenue collections and public spending are divided between central and local governments. There are three core principles behind the theory. First, efficiency, meaning that local governments are closer to their communities and can respond better to local needs. Second, equity, which is managed by the central government to ensure fair distributions of resources. And third, stability, which remains the role of the central government in macroeconomic control. This theory is highly relevant to my research variable. General original income reflects local fiscal autonomy. General and special allocation fund represent intergovernmental transfers to promote equity. Populations increases the demand for public services, and economic growth as a moderating variables, influencing the strength of the relationship between revenue and expenditure. Moving on to the operational theory, I used the framework by Burt and Vaillancourt 2006, which focuses on how local government in developing countries allocated their expenditures. This theory provides a more practical view. It emphasizes that while regions are given spending responsibilities, they must also have the fiscal capacity to fulfill them. When this balance is missing, the result is inefficiency and dependency. The theory also warns of the moral hazard created by fiscal transfers. If a region receives too much funding from the central government without accountability, it might not feel the need to optimize its own general original income. To give broader context, let's look at how regional expenditure is approached globally and in Indonesia. Some foundational thinkers include Musgrave, who introduced the three government functions: allocations, distributions, and stabilizations. Oates, who emphasized the efficiency gains from decentralization, and Samuelson, who developed the theory of public goods. In Indonesia, the decentralization reform in 1999 gave regions greater control over spending. However, many areas, including West Sumatra, still have fiscal dependence on the central government. When we compare globally, developed countries typically have transparent and efficient systems, often supported by digital platforms and participatory budgeting. In contrast, developing countries often struggle with centralized control and limited accountability. Looking at Asia and Europe, Asia shows mixed progress. Some nations are still very centralized, while Europe demonstrates mature fiscal decentralization with strong local citizens' engagement. Let's now connect the theory to real-world developments in West Sumatra and Indonesia from 2014 to 2024. We can divide the spending trends into three passes. First, 2014 to 2019 focused heavily on infrastructure development, but with low regional income and a strong reliance on general and special allocation funds. Second, 2020 to 2021, budgets were reallocated for COVID-19 responses, mostly health and social protections. Third, 2022 to 2024, introductions of performance-based budgeting, supported by systems like SIPD and accrual-based financing reporting, or certain LKPD. Several fiscal reforms support this shift: thematic allocations of General Allocations Fund, implementations of HKPD Law 2022, and a rise in participatory budgeting using digital platforms. Looking ahead to 2024 to 2029, under the Prabowo Gibran administrations, we expect continued digital transformations, but also possible re-centralizations for national priority programs. The biggest challenge remains how to balance local autonomy with national development goals. In conclusion, Chapter 2 provides a solid theoretical and contextual basis for the research. By combining grand theories with operational insights and real data trends, we can better understand the drivers of regional expenditure and how to improve fiscal performance at the local level. In this chapter, I explain the methodology that guides the entire research process, starting from the research approach, locations, to the type of data used. This study adopts a quantitative approach, which is widely used in empirical studies that involve numerical data and aims for objectivity in testing hypotheses. More specifically, I apply an explanatory method, which is designed to identify and test causal relationships, not just correlations between variables. To strengthen the analysis, I use panel data, which combines cross-sections data from 19 districts and cities in West Sumatra, and time series data over a period of 10 years from 2014 to 2023. This panel structure offers several advantages. It allows the study to control for unobserved heterogeneity across regions, track changes over time, and produce more efficient and robust estimates compared to purely cross-sectional or time series data. West Sumatra was selected as the research setting not only because of its administrative completeness, 12 regencies and 7 cities, but also due to its diversity in economic structures, fiscal capacities, and populations dynamics. These differences across regions create a rich context for understanding the variations in public expenditure. The data are entirely secondary and collected from official and credible sources such as BPS, a statistical center for demographic and economic indicators, and Directorate General of Fiscal Balance for fiscal data, and the Ministry of Home Affairs for budget realization reports. Using official data helps ensure data reliability, consistency, and transparency, which are essential for a valid quantitative study. After understanding the research design, the next important component is variables involved in the study and how they are measured. The dependent variables is regional expenditures, which refers to the total actual government spending reported in the local budget realizations, or shortened as APBD. It includes operational and capital spending, and it measured in million rupiah. There are four independent variables. Regional income reflects local revenue generating capacity and fiscal independence. General Allocations Fund and unconditional transfers from the central government used for both operations and development. special allocation fund, a targeted grant for specific sectors like education, health, and infrastructure. Populations represents the total residents in each district or city and is used to capture the scale of public service needs. In addition to these variables, the study includes a moderating variables, economic growth, which is measured by the annual percentage increase in GRDP or gross regional domestic product. This allows the research to go one step further by testing whether the influence of PAD, DAU, DAK, and populations depends on the level of economic development in each region. All variables are measured using a ratio scale, which is suitable for econometric modeling, and in some cases, logarithmic transformations may be applied to address newness and reduce heterogeneity in the dataset. These operational definitions ensures that every variable is clearly defined, consistently measured, and ready for statistical analysis in the panel regressions framework. With all the variables defined and the data prepared, the next step is to apply the appropriate data analysis techniques to test the hypothesis. Since the dataset includes both time series and cross-sectional elements, panel data regressions is used. This method provides stronger statistical power and control for time invariant characteristic across regions. Before running the regressions, the study conducts a series of model selections tests, including the show test to decide between pooled OLS and fixed effect, the Hausman test to choose between fixed and random effects, and the Bruce-Pagan-LM test to check for random effect presence. Based on these results, the most appropriate regressions model, either fixed effects or random effect, will be used to test the moderation's effect of economic growth. A moderated regression analysis or MRR is performed, which includes interaction terms between each independent variables and moderator. A significant interactions coefficient indicates that economic growth moderates the impact of fiscal and demographic variables on regional expenditure. In addition, several classical assumption tests are conducted to ensure that the model meets standard econometric requirements. This includes linearity tests, multicollinearity tests using VIF, heteroscedasticity tests, autocorrelation chance, normality tests. Finally, although this research uses public secondary data and does not involve human participants, it still adheres to core principles of research ethics. First, transparency in data usage and reporting. Second, accountability and objectivity in analysis. Third, proper citations of all data sources. Fourth, avoidance of manipulations or data fabrications. These ethical standards ensure that the findings of the study are not only statistically valid but also academically responsible and scientifically credible. In summary, the methodology presented in Chapter 3 establishes a solid foundation for conducting rigorous analysis by combining a structured research design, high-quality data, and appropriate analytical tools. The study aimed to provide meaningful insights into how fiscal and demographic factors shape regional spending in West Sumatra. I hope this explanation has provided a clear understanding of the research foundations, methodology, and analytical framework used in the study. Constructive feedback and suggestions are highly welcome to improve this research further. Thank you very much for your time and attention. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.